Hi there, you well. It's Tuesday morning. It's just after, well, it's just before 8 o'clock actually, as I record this. Been out for a jog with the dog and back in the house and preparing today's pre-record for Tuesday's program. Just a quick word on YouTube. Now, those of you who've been involved with the program, listened to the program since it began, or for the last couple of years, will know that this February, just gone, this February 2018, the YouTube channel, the original channel for the Richie Allen Show, was deleted by YouTube over alleged community guidelines strikes that all came together very quickly, some of which were about videos that had been uploaded to YouTube back in 2016. There was no warning given even. The YouTube channel was deleted. We couldn't get to speak to anybody, Simon, my YouTube editor, and we were told that was it, the channel was gone. We had about 80,000 subscribers, which is very healthy, 80,000, and we had over 20 million views in the time the channel was online. We put the channel up in late 2015, but it wasn't really until 2016 that we started putting videos on there, really. So it was deleted, and I was cheesed off at the time. But it had been demonetized pretty much over a year before that anyway, with this big attack on content by Google, YouTube. So they deleted our channel. Now, against my better judgment, or against my wishes, I created a new channel in 2015 under the umbrella again of the Richie Allen Show. 2018, what am I saying? And we began in late February uploading our interviews and monologues to the new channel. And it gained, in the last couple of months, it gained about 14,000 subscribers and lots of views, but Google wouldn't allow us monetize it. Or at that time, it said that your channel is under review, you've got to have 1,000 subscribers, and you've got to have 4,000 hours of watch time. And when you get that, you'll be eligible for monetization. Now, we got the 1,000 subscriptions and 4,000 hours of viewing time very quickly, because the show it's an established show now. And we previously had so many subscribers that people quickly found the new channel and jumped on board. But 2 months or more went by, 3 months in fact, and Google, YouTube kept telling us that the channel is still under review, it's under review for monetization. You can't monetize it until we make a decision, and we have a backlog. Now, this morning, I got the news that I expected to get all along, which is that the platform has told me and the show that we're ineligible for monetization. The Richie Allen Show is ineligible for monetization. Why? Now, I'd love to be able to put this up on the screen here, but I don't have the software for it. But I can read it. I've done a little experiment. I can read it without affecting the camera, so you can still see my big, ugly, baldy head. So, unfortunately, your channel wasn't approved for monetization. I'm reading it here now. Sorry for banging the table. Unfortunately, your channel wasn't approved for monetization. You can reapply to join the YouTube Partner Program in 30 days on August the 1st, 2018. And then they give me a kind of dubious, not so much dubious, a very vague is a good word, reason as to why the channel isn't eligible. And the reason is duplication. Let me read what it says. Duplication. Here's why your channel is out of compliance. Duplication. And it says in most cases you can't re-upload someone else's content unless you get permission first. Remember, it's not enough to credit the content owner or state that no copyright infringement is intended. Learn more about copyright and fair use. It goes on to say, here are some of the types of content that are subject to copyright. And it goes on to say, audio-visual works like TV shows and movies, sound recordings and musical compositions, visual and written works including paintings, posters, articles and books. dramatic works such as plays and musicals, and video games and computer software. Now, this program is in no breach of copyright law whatsoever. In fact, ironically, when you go into the settings on your channel, you can actually see by going to your channel that you have 0 copyright strikes. You have 0 community guideline strikes. So we have 0 copyright strikes, 0 community guideline strikes. And we haven't been uploading TV shows and movies. We haven't been putting musical compositions on our videos because we ain't stupid. We understand what copyright is. Simon uploads the interviews from the Richie Allen Show and the monologues. Nobody's content is duplicated. Nobody's channel is duplicated. And where we use the occasional clip of news audio, that is covered under fair use law in this country, because we're not playing somebody's news content in the monologue and using it as our own. We're using what was said as a means to criticize it, to reevaluate it, and to assign a different meaning to it. So we're not in any breach of copyright, which YouTube acknowledges, and we're certainly not in breach of duplication, but we can't monetize. And what's very interesting about this, I wish I could show you this on screen, but I don't have the software and I'm not very technically proficient. It says, what's not being assessed? Now here's where they get into the sort of lying, pathological lying, that would keel over the Blue Fairy herself. They say, our aim is to create an environment that's fair for all creators. We're not looking at things like how unique your channel is, the popularity of your videos, how political your channel is, how often you upload, sexual orientation or gender identity, your engagement with fans. They're actually saying that they're not assessing how political your channel is, and that's obviously a barefaced lie. But it's a lie told by a faceless, nameless and uncontactable organisation. I can't contact them. Duplication, it says. We can't monetize because of duplication. What if I duplicate it? They won't tell you. What they do is they send you an email to your Gmail account, obviously. Hi, Richie Allen. Thank you for applying to the YouTube Partner Program. Unfortunately, your application doesn't meet our policies. We have policies in place, blah, 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 blah. And then what it says, this is very interesting. It says, to evaluate your application, our team carefully reviewed your channel. Carefully reviewed your channel. And then it goes on to say, because it doesn't give you any idea of where you were in breach of duplication, which might give you a chance really to play, to play ball with them and do something. It says, if you want to reapply, you should start by going to the monetization page to read more about the policy your channel violated. But it's very vague. It just says duplication. Then it says, review your videos against our YouTube Partner Program policies and our community guidelines. The next step is to edit or delete any videos that violate our policies. So we have to go through hundreds and hundreds of videos against their community guidelines, program partner policies, try and figure out where we've been guilty of duplication because they won't tell us, and then cut and delete and discard as is relevant. That's just bollocks. And I suppose is evidence of the fact that, of course, we're not in breach of duplication rules or guidelines. We're not duplicating or presenting other parties, third parties' content as our own. We're not doing that. Patently, we're not doing that. But we were never going to be allowed to monetize, were we? And this goes to the heart of what I spoke about on the program yesterday. In yesterday's hour-long program at the very beginning, talking about how YouTube, Google and Facebook have effectively become the world's first and last global regulators of the independent media. Programs like mine are never going to be allowed to succeed on a monetization platform like YouTube because of the nature of not only what the program does, but how it does it. And that's just that. Of course, I'm not going to reapply on the 1st of August because it would be an exercise in futility. They would do the same thing again. They kept us in limbo for months before saying, no, you can't monetize. We would reapply in August, and probably by January next year, we would get a message saying, no, you can't monetize your channel. It's dreadful. And people said to me, why did you put a new channel up, Richie? The reason I did that was more in hope than anything else. I thought, right, okay, YouTube, Google is deliberately restricting the reach of our videos. Now, how do you know that? You see, a lot of spurious claims are made by people in the truth or industrial complex. A lot of spurious claims about how they're being attacked for their efforts for humanity and all of that narcissistic bollocks. And I've never gone in for any of that. And how do we know that our channel was being targeted? Well, first of all, it was deleted in February for no good reason. But second of all, by every other measure, the program has grown and grown and grown and grown and continues to grow and has been growing since it was first aired in September 2014. It's got an enormous live listenership. Tens of thousands of people tune into it live every evening and then catch the repeats on the players. We get over 70,000 podcast downloads a week through Podomatic and through iTunes. These are people who don't get the program live but pick it up later later on demand, as people are more likely to do these days. So the program is hugely successful in terms of its reach. Whether it's any good is entirely subjective. That's for you to decide and for you to say, not for me. That's a completely different thing. It doesn't matter whether it's any good or not. It is hugely successful. So as it continues to grow through iTunes, through Spotify, through Podomatic, as the live numbers grow and grow and grow and grow, the YouTube numbers have gone down. Where we used to get a minimum of 12 to 15,000 views per video, now we get 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 if we're lucky. And again, I talked about this last night in my segment on the global regulation or the global regulators of the independent media, which is YouTube and Facebook now. And the reason I put a new channel on, curiosity to see would it be deleted straight away, but because it's so difficult to monetize our content and our show, it's extremely difficult to do that. I thought, well, if we can just get another channel up there and put our videos up there every month, try and quietly go about our business, and if we can just bring in a bare minimum of a couple of hundred, few hundred quid a month, it'll be worth it just for that. Because other monetization revenue streams have basically been cut off from us, from the Richie Allen Show, not just from us, from other content creators as well. So I think this probably will be the last YouTube upload I make. I can't afford to waste time in uploading content to a channel where there's nothing on the back end for me or for the show. I want to pay tribute to Simon Stewart, an amazing guy from Birmingham, whom was on board from day one. Simon was uploading the videos from day one back in 2015 when there was no money, and he didn't want any money. But then when we started to see a little bit of revenue come in through monetization back in 2015, 2016. Obviously, Simon got a cut of that money. It wasn't his motivation, but he got a cut and he was happy to make the videos. And even when we were demonetized very early last year, Simon kept putting the videos up anyway because he's a decent guy. Money was never the issue for Simon. In fact, it's never been my issue either. If money was my issue, I wouldn't be sitting here doing this. There are other things I can do, teaching and broadcasting, that would bring in, a decent enough income for me. But I don't want to do that. I want to do this. But how long can I continue to do this? I don't think very long, to be honest with you, and I'll tell you why. And I'm not looking for any sympathy here. It's been 3.5 years since this show went on air, and it's basically, its success is down to the support that it has received from the audience, the listeners to the program, and the advertisers that we've had, which, I've had a great relationship with, and thrilled that we've had advertisers come on board from time to time and run campaigns. Without them and without the listener support, we wouldn't have been able to continue. It's as simple as that, because it's a full-time job. To do it 5 days a week, Sunday to Thursday, and put those programs on is it's a 3-person job for a start, but it's a full-time job. Without that support, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to pay for it. First of all, to pay to produce the show. The show, is an expensive show to put on 5 days a week, in terms of the podcast hosting, the streaming and everything else. But it's been fantastic, but it's become more and more and more and more difficult to monetize it. And we now know that the Google AdSense, Google Monetization avenue is closed permanently. What's the point in wasting time and energy uploading to YouTube? I know there will be selfish people who will say, the me generation, the me, well, I can only get it from YouTube. Well, you're going to have to get iTunes, or you're going to have to be able to figure out a way to get Podomatic, or you're going to have to listen to the program live. I'm not going to deal with a corporation like Google who's going to say, no, you're not going to be monetized, and then lie and say that it's got nothing to do with your political points of view, when it patently is. So that's where we are with that. As for the show is in no immediate danger. I'm not going to pack up and walk away from it tomorrow or next week, but it's looking increasingly likely that in 2019, the way things are going, I'll have to say, look, it's been terrific. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed making it every day. I've enjoyed putting it up online every day, doing it live. But I might have to look elsewhere for employment. Like I said, education and other things I can do because of my various qualifications. Now, this isn't an unsubtle appeal for donations. You know how I am with donations. I very, very rarely mention them on the program, because traditionally it's embarrassed me to be asking for donations. Not because I felt I should be embarrassed, but it's embarrassing to be reminding people who download content 5 days a week and who might be in a position to make a contribution but choose not to. It gets embarrassing and infuriating to remind people, listen, please support this content. If you like it and if you use it, please support it, because you can see what's happening to it. Not just this show, but other shows as well. You can see that increasingly that dam that I described last night is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. That dam to protect the establishment from the rising tide of independent media is getting bigger, and it's getting harder to scale, making it impossible for us to be monetized. It's infuriating to me that commercial radio stations lie all the time about their reach. Lie, exaggerate their reach. Because we are an online platform, because we stream live every evening from our own studio, the studio that was built with listener money, I can prove with very sophisticated data can prove how many people. In fact, it's not very sophisticated. The data itself isn't very sophisticated. But we can prove, we can say to people, look, here is the audience. You can go to Podomatic and look at the numbers. You don't have to get them from me. That's just the Podomatic, but we can show the live numbers. And despite that huge audience, we can't get a dozen, 2 dozen. A dozen is not a lot really, regular advertisers which would pay for the program. This has always been a problem for the independent media, and it's a problem for the Richie Allen Show. It's the most annoying thing in the world to think you have this audience. We ran campaigns for people who came back to us and said the campaign was enormously successful. We ran a campaign for a book written by the great Jim Rickards. They loved it. Came back. They were able to categorically say, we know that the ad, we know because of the data, because of the times the ad ran, we know we shifted so many books because of our association with the show, because the audience is huge. And yet we can't bring in advertisers. So what do you do? And of course, the show's been on air for nearly 4 years. So it's inevitable that listener support drops off because people assume, well, it's fine. Sounds great, sounds very professional. It's on Fab Radio in Manchester. They must be paying him. No, they're not. It sounds very healthy. All is great. It must be flying. I don't need to support. And what's happened is over the years, particularly in the last 12 months, support from the audience has significantly dwindled. And there isn't anything I can do about that, other than drop in a jingle every now and then saying, look, if you haven't supported the program before, please support it. So there you are. So some of our enemies, of course, will be happy to see that Google have done this. They shouldn't be happy. Whether you like somebody or their content or not, you shouldn't find this amusing that this is happening to independent content creators. Because whatever you might think of my content, and you have every right to think that it's rubbish or it's garbage or you don't agree with it, by all means. But it's 100% independent content that features voices that would never get a look in on national or commercial radio. So whether you do or whether you don't like me, don't be triumphalist about the situation that programs like mine find ourselves in, because it's coming to you as well. I've said it 1,000 times. I would never silence those I disagree with most vehemently. Some of the people on the alt-right that I find particularly odious, would never shut them down, would never agree with them being kicked off of Twitter or kicked off of YouTube, ever, no matter what they say. Because I'd be a hypocrite. I've never been a hypocrite. Very, very outspoken on people's opinions I am, but never seek to marginalise them or shut them down. So that's where we are on the Google, YouTube things then. I mean, the cheek of the bastards, you know. We can't monetize you because of duplication. They don't give any evidence or any instances or examples of where we duplicated. And then they say to you, well, you go and figure it out yourself. And that's a wonderful get out of jail card for the likes of Google, isn't it? You know, we can basically say to you, your partner verified and your channel is in good standing. It's not breached any copyright, but duplication. So you go and figure it out yourself. You're not being monetized. And this is what's happened. And this is a direct result of what I talked about extensively last night, which is in one of the previous videos. This is why Google, YouTube and Facebook have come to be. To get the world, 1 billion hours of video content is watched a day on YouTube. 2.2 billion people a month use Facebook. It is game, set and match. It's game over. And you can talk about all these other video sharing content sites, platforms I should say, to upload your content. It's a waste of time. Why? Google. Google destroyed Dailymotion, destroyed every other video platform after it acquired YouTube, which is the reason, as I said last night, it shouldn't have been allowed to acquire YouTube in the first place. It was the most anti-competitive thing that had happened to the internet at that particular time. Maybe the most anti-competitive thing. So that's where we are. I've got to go now and get some content together for the Richie Allen Show for today, for Tuesday, which will be pre-recorded again. I'm still amused by this World Cup nonsense. I ain't watching the World Cup. It's about the heat. And if it relents a little bit next week, which it might do, the show will go back to normal, where I present it live for 2 hours, 7 to 9 as usual. And don't panic about this temporary change, by the way. It's just a temporary change. The show will always be, as long as it's on air anyway, 2 hours long, 7 to 9, with interviews with guests and with news analysis, always. It's just the temperatures have been extreme lately, so it's been, and it was a great blessing to pre-record yesterday and put it on as I did, and it's good that I can do that this week. So look, that's where we are. You know, nothing has changed really. You know, we haven't been allowed to monetize for ages, but I was kind of hoping we might just get away with it with this channel, just to bring in a much needed couple of £100 maybe a month, but they're not having it. They're not having it. They're not going to allow programs like ours succeed on their platform, and we just have to suck it up. And I'm absolutely reticent now to continue to upload there. Of course, people who exclusively get the program on YouTube will kick off and complain about it. Do you donate to the program? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you don't, what are you complaining for? What's in it for me to upload videos to YouTube? Takes a bit of time. You can ask Simon Stewart. I do it as well. I do it on Sundays, and sometimes I do it during the week. Takes a while to do it, to make the video, even though it's audio over an image. What's in it for me? What's in it for the show to be putting the information on YouTube? More people see the content. Yes, of course, and that's what it's all about. It's about the content, and it's about people seeing it. It's not about money. But the world doesn't run on oxygen, right? And it doesn't run on good intentions. And that's the way it is. And unless we can figure out a way to put the show on a more stable financial footing than it is now, in the new year, it could be a case of, and maybe that'll be a good thing. Maybe that would be a good thing, that break, if I go and do something else. If I go and do something in the private sector, which will give me a bit of peace of mind financially, and maybe that break mightn't be the worst thing in the world for me and for the audience. But look, that's not, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just wait and see what happens over the next few months and see what we can do in the autumn. Can we bring in some more revenue? So there you are. YouTube, Google says, we deleted your channel in February with 80,000 subscribers and 20 million views. Your new channel is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's got no copyright strikes, but you can't monetize it. And that's where we are with that. So that is forever closed off as a stream of revenue for our show. Right. So I'm just updating you and keeping you posted. richieallen.co.uk is my website. There are details there with respect to donating. If you've never donated before and yet you're in a position to do so, you really should give it a second thought, really. You know, if you download somebody's content constantly, not just mine, but anybody else's, you should support it. And you know what? I very, very rarely mention it on the show. I'm not going to mention it again. We'll see how it goes. So then, today's show will be on tonight on the usual platforms at 7 UK time, but it will be recorded in the afternoon today. I've got some good stuff already. There's some interesting things happening. Fuck YouTube and fuck Google. We'll figure it out between us. In the meantime, I hope all that recorded, by the way. I think it did it? Yeah. That's much longer than I expected it to be. I've kind of droned on a bit there. I'll speak to you later on the show, and in the meantime, enjoy the weather, and if you're on holidays, enjoy your holidays. Richie Allen Show, Tuesday, July 3rd, 7 PM as usual. Until then, bye from me, bye.